Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we've got something a little bit different here. We've got a very old, decrepit skid steer. This is an OMC Mustang 330. They're hydrostatic drive, so there's no chains. I believe they come with it's either a 22 horsepower or a 25 horsepower Onan engine back in, I think this was made around 1974. I'm not sure on the exact year on this. A little hard to read the plate there. Maybe I can clean that up and be able to see it, but I think it's a 70s model. As you can see, it's been used and abused. It's rusty as hell. The paint is in terrible shape. Tires hold air. They have tubes in them. That's the only reason they hold air. I'm told that I am the third owner. The original owner of this machine owned it for a long time. He sold it to a guy, and that guy sold it to me. He told me he used it a little bit. So I've always wanted a little skid steer, just something for around the house to do some yard work and some chores and stuff. I saw this one. It was a little higher than I wanted to pay for something that was covered in rust and I didn't really know much about. But I drove about an hour and ended up giving this guy $2,300 for this machine. That was a little high, I realized when I got back, and it's in pretty rough shape. The hydraulics, everything worked. It ran enough to get it on the trailer. It did need some carburetor work. Tires are not in great condition. Bucket's all right. Somebody fabbed their own teeth on it and stuff. It's in decent shape. All the pins seem to be tight. I went through and greased all the pivots already. I mentioned when we put it on the trailer, when I went to pick it up, this thing had set all winter. It's the winter season here. The guy said that it had set all winter pretty much, and he wasn't even sure if it'd start, but it did fire up with some choke. It sputtered a little bit, didn't really want to stay running, so we were able to get it on the trailer, and I knew it probably just had a carburetor issue, or that engine that's in there, I believe, is the original one, which is impressive. That thing's older than I am, so by quite a bit. So if that's the original engine and it's still kicking, that's pretty impressive. It's also scary, you know. I would obviously rather have something a little newer in it. I may end up doing an engine swap on this once I find out if everything else is worth it. Anyways, I picked this thing up for $2,300. Like I said, that's a little on the high side. That's more than I wanted to pay for it. I brought it back. I was going to do a whole video on everything on this, but the weather sucked. I was running out of time, so I just decided to start working on some stuff just to get it moving and stuff so that I could make some videos on some other stuff. I kind of skipped a few things, and I'm sorry for that, but maybe I can go back and show you what I did with those. It did come with a battery it has a full charge. It is operating as it should. It is electric start. It works, but so let's talk a little bit about what I've already done. As I mentioned, it didn't want to stay running. This guy, or the guy I bought it from, installed this gravity feed fuel tank on it. It's just aluminum fuel tank. Not sure that I like where it's mounted by your head, but whatever, I can deal with that later. It is a gravity feed fuel tank. You can see it comes down here. There is an on-off switch in there. Inline fuel filter goes down to the carburetor. I have already had the carburetor off and went through the whole thing. You can see it there, the original carburetor, old ass shit. And when I got it apart, you could tell it was all this shit. You could also tell that somebody had put seafoam and a bunch of fuel additives in there, and I'm not a fan of any of that. In my belief, just keep your fuel system clean. You don't have to deal with that stuff, you know. During the winter, drain the fuel out. Just keep things clean so you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Make sure you have a good fuel filter on there so dirt's not getting through. Make sure your fuel tank's clean. I'm just not a fan of seafoam and stuff, because all it does is break down the dirt or whatever, you know, whatever's in the system, and then that just goes down the system until it meets something that it's going to clog with, which is usually an injector or a jet in the carburetor, you know. May get in the float valve, make it stick open. So in my opinion, just don't do those things. Just if your machine needs a carburetor clean, just take the damn carburetor off and clean it. It's not that hard. Instead of dumping seafoam and all this magic shit in there. Anyway, so I went through the carburetor on this thing, and what I found out, it was pretty dirty down in the bowl. There is a main jet on this, and it is actually metered by a screw that goes in through the bottom of the bowl and goes up into the jet. And obviously the more you back it off or turn counterclockwise, it'll allow more fuel into the machine. The main jet's only going to be at full throttle, so that only affected fuel throttle. The issue this was having is it didn't want to stay running and idle, and it barely wanted to idle. It does have a mixture screw in it, an idle mixture screw. I can show you that. That is sticking right off of the carburetor right there. It was about a half a turn out, which wasn't quite enough. It was starting for fuel a little bit at idle. But the real issue is I took that screw out and took the carburetor apart, and the passage for the fuel to get to that screw was partially blocked. So no matter how much we opened up that screw, we were still going to have restricted fuel flow on the idle circuit. So we got that all cleaned up, got it running a lot better. So I was able to pull it in here in the warm. It's miserable outside. We got like 50-mile-an-hour winds, snow. So I'm not even going to open that door today. Or I would show you how it's running. It's running a lot better. It needs fine-tuned. I'm going to end up backing that metering screw off of the main jet just a little more to allow a little more fuel at full throttle. That's where it seems like it's struggling a little bit. That should clean it up. If not, we can dig into other things like maybe the valves need adjusted, or it could be low compression. As old as that engine is, I hope it's not, but probably is. I'm going to consider an engine swap on this, like I said, so I'm not real concerned with that. If they told me that they rebuilt the top end in this engine, that's what the guy told me, but I don't know if they did or not. And even if they did, the crankshaft and stuff being that old, not real reliable, but it could go for a long time. Good thing is it's gas. This one uses a gas engine, so if you do have to replace it, you can find pretty reasonably priced gas engines to fit this. I believe the Predator 670, which is a cheap Harbor Freight engine, would fit right in it, so you can get that around probably, depending on where you get it, you can get it for probably $600 to $900. So we'll worry about that later. I think that one's okay for now for what I'm going to use it for. And as you can see, I got absolutely out of my mind last night and decided to start painting this thing, and I'm miserable today. I'm so sore, tired. I went after it yesterday on this thing for about 14 hours. This is what it originally looked like over here. You can see it's just rusted all the hell. Has some oil and dirt stuck to the side of the, had to scrape all that off, sand everything down. But you can see this side I've started on. I've got it painted, got it all sanded down, primed, sanded again, painted. It's not perfect, but it's heavy equipment, so. And I'm gonna get the decals, the original decals, to go back on it, like this side has. Just so if I plan to keep this thing because I just wanted something cheap to use around here. Like I said, I've always wanted one, but I may end up selling it if I don't use it enough or I don't have room to store it around here. I don't know yet, but I want to keep it as close to original as possible in case I do sell it. So I want the labels and the stickers all on there so that people know what they have in case they have to order parts and stuff. The other thing I did underneath the seat is the hydraulics, and I had to adjust, I had to zero the hydros because this thing wanted to creep when starting, and it was making it hard to start because obviously it was putting a load on the engine. So I had to adjust those, zero them. I got them pretty good. They're not perfect. It still kind of wants to creep a little bit sometimes. I may adjust them a little bit more. My plan, if everything goes as it should, this one does have a parking brake, by the way. I'll just go ahead and explain this one because it's a little different than modern skid steers. But so basically you have foot controls, you have a T-post control for your forward and reverse and turning. Throttle adjustment is right there, key switch. Parking brake is down here, it kind of works. The foot controls, the parking brake's right in the middle. That's the lock for it. The foot pedals control your lift and lower and tilt. So it's a little finicky, but I mean, it works pretty good. But for 1974, we went to the moon in 1969, right? So you would think skid steers would have a little bit of technology. probably 1974. But anyways, yeah, I took all that off, sanded it down. The wheels look a lot better, all that. I plan to put new tires on it. Like I said, if everything else goes well, I'm gonna put new tires on it when I get done with everything. This side I still need to sand down, clean it up, prime it, paint it, all that good stuff. But I think it'll look pretty decent after I get done with all that. I'm gonna do the inside too. It's pretty rough in there. One issue it does have is this lift cylinder leaks. You can see a little bit of leakage there. Probably should have fixed that before I painted this side, because it's just gonna leak onto the paint and make it discolored and stuff, but I can fix that later. That's the only leak that I've found on this thing, which is insane. I already changed the engine oil and filter on it. That is over here on this side. This is gonna be your hydraulic oil here. I checked it before I got it from the guy. This is your engine oil here. It has nice clean oil in it. Before it had pretty shitty oil in it, but it was at the correct level. Trying to think. Oh, it does have an exhaust leak because somebody, I don't know what these came with as far as exhaust when they were original, but they're kind of in a weird area, so it looks like people have been making their own exhaust. That looks like just a regular lawnmower exhaust, and they welded it on to the exhaust pipe there. But right here, it is cracked and has a pinhole, and it's actually falling off. So I'm going to take those off and make new exhaust for it. It's annoying with the leak. I also noticed right here on the governor arm right here, that's not supposed to sit like that. That's actually worn out. It's supposed to be up on that ball, the ball joint like that, but it falls off. That'll make the governor a little bit out of sync, and that could cause some of the full throttle running issues we're having too. This side, back to it, obviously I painted the wheels. They were rusty as hell. It took a long time to do the prep work on them. They're not perfect, but they look way better. And at least we have some rust prevention now. I haven't got to the wheel motors yet. I'm going to pull those off there, sand them down as well, repaint them, because they look pretty shitty. I scraped all the oil and dirt out of them yesterday so they could cool a little bit better. You don't want those things caked in oil and dirt and stuff. That just keeps air from getting to them, and then they get hot and you could have issues. That lift cylinder over there leaked, like I said. Amazingly, this one that's all rusted to hell does not. So I should be able to sand it down, paint it, and be good with that one. These lift cylinder, or these tilt cylinders up here, they're, I guess it'd be lifts. No, it'd be tilt cylinders. Anyways, they're rusty as hell, as you can see. They've had, that's where all of, you know, anything, any debris out of the bucket or whatever, if you're pushing snow or whatever you're doing with it, gets on those, eats all the paint up. They're rusty as hell, but they work perfect. They have zero play in the pins. They don't leak at all, so I'm just gonna sand those down and repaint those too. It does need, sorry about the boxes there. I was using those to block some stuff to paint, but the hydraulic hoses are in pretty rough condition too. I'm gonna replace all those once I know that the machine is worth spending that much on. So far, I'm not much more into it than what I paid for it. Besides paint, I'm probably $100 in paint so far. May put some hardener on it over the paint when I'm done. I'm not sure. I'll see how it looks and what the paint feels like. I'm not gonna get too crazy with it because, like I said, this thing's older than hell. See, those hoses are in pretty rough shape. But I think, like I said, it functions, it runs. None of the hydraulics have issues besides that one over there, and it's not even crazy. The engine runs, so I think it's probably worth the $2,300 I spent on it. When I get done with it though, I would like it to be worth more, from $5,000 to $7,000 range. I know that's asking a lot out of such an old skid steer, but if it functions, and it has decent paint, you know, it's not all rusted like it is right now, and all that has been properly fixed, and it runs good, you know, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't bring at least $5,000 if I sell it. These things are good for horse stalls at horse farms and stuff like that, to clean the manure out and stuff, because they're a little bit more of a compact size than a full-size skid steer. and they weigh a little less. I think this one's around 2,800 pounds, probably closer to 3,000 with this bucket and some other stuff that's been added to it, that fuel tank and stuff. The original fuel tank is right here. It sits down at the bottom. And the reason he put this one on there is because the fuel pump went bad on it. The guy before, who I bought it from, he said that the guy put a cheap fuel pump on it and he didn't like how it was set up, so he just cut that off and put this on there, gravity feeding it to the carburetor, which should be fine as long as it's doing what it's supposed to do. I cut all the fuel pump and stuff off of it, so now that's just a fuel tank sitting down there. May remove it, or I may remove this and try to relocate it, or use the original fuel tank somehow. Regardless, whatever I'm not using, I want to get out of here, and maybe that'll make some room to put some extra weight in the back, because it is a little bit front heavy. But that's the plan right now. Sorry I didn't include you guys on the stuff I've already done. I wanted to make a full video on this thing. I wanted to make a video going to pick it up. It was about an hour and a half from my house. It was on some sketchy, windy, hilly roads too, so I pretty well wore my truck tires out going to pick this thing up. It's a half ton, so it's not really, it's not, I mean, it's capable, it's well capable of pulling this kind of stuff, but it's just not, it's not ideal. You can see there are some lines in the paint. That's where the old graphics are. I went ahead and left those on there. I just didn't feel like scraping them off. There really wasn't any need to. I'm just gonna put the new ones on over the top of the old ones. If I get them perfectly over the top of it, there won't be, the paint will look a lot better, you know, it'll be a lot smoother and you won't be able to see the edges where those graphics are. But overall, I think it'll clean up good, and I'm going to get back to work on this thing today. I will try to make some videos of some stuff I'm doing. I don't know how many of these are left out there. The ones that I've seen are all pretty much junk. They have parts pulled off of them, people are using for other stuff, you know, so I'd like to give this thing another, you know, ideally another 15 years of life somehow. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible with, I mean, it functions right now. I could go use it as it is. Has a little bit of a leak, like I said, and the engine's running just a little bit rough, but I think that's something that can be fixed with the carburetor rather than a compression issue or whatever. Like I said, they said they rebuilt the top end, but I don't know if that's true or not. Let's see if we can see any indications of that. It does have new spark plugs in it. Well, they're newer. When I pulled them out, it looked like it had been running pretty decently. The colors at the end of the spark plug were, you know, exactly how you want them. So it was probably running pretty decently before he parked it, and then the fuel system just got a little bit clogged up. I don't see any indications of a new top end, but I would say it almost has to have, because I don't think this thing would still be running this many years later on the original engine and top end. So, but you can see that old ass thing, it's still got the paint from whenever it was painted long ago. I did remove the air filter. That was the very first thing I did. Took it out. It has a brand new air filter in it, nice and clean. So that's a good sign that maybe they did rebuild the top end in it. And you might say, why don't you just do a compression test and see what kind of condition the top end's in? Well, that was my plan. I do that with everything. But the way that this cylinder head is designed, my compression tester sticks too far down into there, and it would hit the piston when I turn the engine over. So I didn't even, as soon as I pulled the spark plugs out, saw how short they were and how short the thread stack was, I was like, nope, that one's not gonna work. So we're just gonna assume it has decent compression right now. I'll get a different compression tester and do a compression test on it eventually. But yeah, and I think this is even the original seat, and it's still, I mean, it's a little shitty, but it's been sitting out in the weather, so the whole thing's in pretty shitty condition. I could put some kind of cover over that and it'd probably be just fine though. Anyways, I know we didn't really do anything here. We just kind of walked around the machine and went over some stuff, but thanks for watching. I do plan, like I said, I do plan on making some videos on this. Just try to find some stuff that might be everyday stuff that people run into on their machines. Maybe some specific stuff for this one, but I don't think it really matters because there's not really many of them out there that I've seen. So I don't think it would do much good doing this machine specific stuff. This is a guard for the back. I took it off there because I'm gonna sand it down and paint it. It's in pretty rough shape. It has a fan shroud on it for the air intake on the engine back here, so it pulls air through there. I already painted the weight stack. It looks much better. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll let you know anything that comes up. Thank you.